Hello friends, welcome to this video. In this video, I will show you how easy it is to manage development environment using Docker and its containers for your next Laravel project. I will explain how Docker manages your project dependencies using containers and what are the advantages over traditional installation approach. So in traditional approach, we have to install many things before we can actually run the project in the browser. For instance, we have to install a web server, database, scripting language, composer or npm to manage the project dependencies. In many cases, if we want to run a project on real like URL, then we have to also create virtual host in web server. And on top of it, we have to run quite a few commands like composer install or php artisan key generate or php artisan migrate. What if we can automate all of these steps? Wouldn't it save a lot of development time if we can set up the whole project on staging or develop a production server with just one command? Let me show you how. So before we get started, we have to ensure that we have a few things installed in the system. First thing is Docker. So I'm running on Docker version 20.10. Next thing is Docker Compose. So I'm by the time of this recording, I'm running on 1.29. And the last thing, that is Git. Git is optional, but I just want to demonstrate how you can set up the Git project using Docker. So I have installed the Git. So I'm running on Git version 2.25. Let me clear this out. So I have set up everything in my system, and I will just quickly walk you through with each and every steps just to save the time. So first thing is we have to create the docker-compose.yml file. I have already created that, and you can see some of the code is written here, and I will explain each and every steps. So first thing is version. I have set the version as 3.8. Second thing is networks, and I have set up one network, that is Laravel, and provided a driver as a bridge. And I have provided subnets like internal IPs between 0 to 24 range. Second thing is services, and in that services I have defined all the services that are essential for me to run the Laravel project, starting from Nginx as a web server, MySql as a database, Admino as a database GUI tool or like debugging tool or just to run queries, PHP as a scripting language, Composer to maintain or manage dependencies. In many cases, you also require npm, but I have not taken as an example of it. But if you need, you can just define that next service just below the Composer to install that. Okay, now let's start with the Nginx. So for Nginx, I'm using image Nginx as with stable alpine tag. And how you can get that? And just go to Nginx official Docker page, and in tags you will get all the available tags. From this you can take, or you just replace copy everything. And if you want to, for example, if you want to use stable Perl image tag, then you can just replace the whole thing with this one. I am sticking with stable alpine tag. Then the container name, you can define any container name you want. So I'm just sticking with the Nginx. Second thing is ports. So Nginx usually run on 80. but you can map the port with container port with the local port. So in my local, for instance, I have something running on port number 80. So I have provided a default port is 8081. So whenever the Nginx starts, it will map containers 80 port with my local system's 8081 port, and it will start the Nginx service. Then the volume. So this is very tricky part, but it is also very essential. So I am mapping the volume. So whenever the Nginx container install, it will map this directory where www.html of Nginx container with my local directory src. So as of now, you can see this src folder. Next volume is default.conf. I have overwritten that configuration to run my project on on a virtual host like dev.laravel.loc. So few outstanding here. I have defined the root as var www.html, then code, then public, because my index.php resides in public. But the one note to highlight is rather than providing the absolute path of the project, I have replaced the path till src with var www.html. Remember, that is essential because we have mapped the project path with src to var www.html, and we are running this project in container, not in local system. The rest of the code is boilerplate, and I have just copied that from Nginx configuration file. Next is MySql. So just like Nginx, I have copied the MySql tag is as 5.6 as I want to run the MySql version as a 5.6. But if you want to run that or upgrade the version, you can just go on official MySql Docker page, and then you can just Google through the tags. So you can use tags as latest 8.2.26 or 8.0 as per your project needs. I'm just speaking with 5.6. There are few other settings which are not covered in Nginx service, that is command. So as of now, in MySql, we are instructing the MySql container to use a default authentication plugin sorry, as a MySql native password. We are mapping the ports from 3306 sorry 3306 with 3307 in my local system, and also the volume. So whatever resides in var lib MySql, that has to be mapped with MySql folder. So it covers everything, like the database that we are going to create, that will be covered in MySql folder, and other MySql dependencies or files that you want to override. You can just map that, you can just override that within this folder. Also in the environment, I am defining my user as a root password as 1234, and I'm defining a new user as a MySql with same password, and my database name would be database. All these settings are customs and you can change it as you want. Also, I am instructing this container or service to stay within the network Laravel. With MySql, I also want to cover the adminer. So adminer is straightforward. It default run on 8080, but I am running that on 8082, and also instructing that into run into the same network, so that all the containers can communicate with each other. The next service is PHP. So PHP is a bit different than other services. In other services, we were defining the image, like which image we want to use, and what version of the image that we want to use by defining the tag besides the image. If we don't define the tag, then it takes the latest as a default. But PHP is different. And how it's so? Let me show you. So first we have instructed it to build the context from Docker file. So I have created this Docker file, and in that I'm defining from PHP 7.4 FPM. So this is a new, but it is quite the same. So what we are doing is here we are instructing the Docker Compose to build my PHP from PHP 7.4 FPM as a base image, and I want to perform quite a few things before we go further. So whenever we run docker compose up command, it will come to PHP, and then it understands that rather than the direct image, we want to do some operations on the image. So we have used the build, and we have defined the docker file where we have defined all the operations. So first thing that we have defined is the base image that we want to use. It is the same, just like any other container. We have defined PHP with the tag 7.4-fpm, and we want to copy the latest composer. So this is also another image. This is the image name, and this is the tag name. And so we are instructing the Docker to install composer and map that in user bin composer of PHP with user local bin composer of the composer. So with this line of code, what we have done is, like in PHP container, we have installed composer container. So later on in the project, when we want to run composer install, or when we want to install a new dependencies in the composer.json file, then this will be helpful. And then we are instructing a Docker to install PDO and PDO MySql extensions in PHP 7.4 to communicate with the MySql. Moving forward, we have installed Docker as a Composer as a separate service too, and here we have defined the command. So it is kind of same container name, composer image. We are using composer latest, and we are defining the command composer install. Also depends on PHP. So first it will install the PHP, and then it will install the composer. So last option is restart always. So I'm instructing the composer to restart this container or any container with this option. I think I have defined this option in almost all the containers. So it will restart the containers as and when I run the command docker compose up-d. Now let me go to the terminal and run command. So I'm running this command as a super user. Docker compose build and docker compose up-d. This will build the containers and run the containers in detach mode. Okay, so at this point I have created all the containers, and I have up the containers, but there are few things remaining before we can actually see the project running in the browser. First thing is we have to download the project using Git, and then second thing is we have to run a series of commands like composer install, composer not composer but PHP artisan migrate or key generate actually to run all this before we can run the project on the browser. So for that I have created one install file. So this is the bash file I'm using to automate the project installation process. So as a very first step, I'm removing the src folder. So is MySql, and then creating the src folder again, and then taking the git URL as an input and cloning the project in src folder. And then after changing the ownership with my root user, and then changing the permission to 777 for storage folder, copying env file into the project directory. So I have the env file in conf, that is outside the project, and that is something, it is a standard env file, but I have only modified the database connection and the app URL. So that I'm copying then I'm bringing down all the containers if they are running, building the containers again, and running the container in detach mode. This step, I don't think it is required for most of you to write in a loop. You just need to write this statement. But since I'm running in low configuration in my system, I'm running this in a loop, and I guess in third or fourth attempt, it is completing the configuration for Docker and downloading the Git, and then it runs the key generation. So in third or fourth attempt, it is performing this uh, operation properly. Then it clears the config, clears the cache. Again, many time I face that my MySql container is not ready before I run this command, so I'm running that in loop. And I guess in third or fourth attempt, it is generating a migration, so I'm running the migrations in database. For most of you, it is not required to run in loop, but if you are facing the same problem like me, then you can run that in loop, or you can increase the loop from 10 to 20 or 30 depending on your configuration. So after running the migrations, I have two seeders that I need to run. So I'm running those seeders too, and that sums up my project installation. If you have any other steps that you need for your specific project, then you can write that down. So if I need to explain this, so what we have done is with this command, for those who are not uh, familiar with Docker Compose. So I'm running the Docker Compose exact PHP. So this PHP relates to the PHP here, and we want to run this command in our PHP container, and the actual command starts from here, like PHP, then the whole project artisan path, dbc, and the class name as a user seeder. So for instance, I'm running this on PHP. If you want to run any specific command, for example on MySql, then your command should be docker compose exec and MySql, and then the actual MySql command that you want to run on the MySql container. Okay, I think we have covered everything up, and now it is time to run the install file and see how it goes. So let me run this file and hit enter. It is asking me for the password, asking me for the git URL. Let me provide the git URL and start the installation. So I have provided the git URL that has created the src folder, and within that the code and documents, and in that I have my project Laravel setup. Then it has started the stop the container, remove the container, and then again install the container. Then it had failed quite a few times, running it for the sixth time. In the sixth step, my application key set successfully. Migrations are running. And at the last tab, it has seeded the database. In default.conf, we have defined the server name. So let me just copy that. We are running on 8081 and we have been redirected to login page. As you can see, the project is running. Also, let's track the adminer. So adminer is running on 8081, I guess, not 8081. Adminer is running on 8082. Localhost colon 80. So as a server, we have to provide DB because Docker is using internal IP mapping. So we just need to define the, not the DB. We have to define the name that we have used, and we have used a MySql name as MySql. And our adminer is running here. So everything is now set up without installing anything in the local system and containerizing our application using Docker. So next time, whenever you are installing the project, you just need to run install file and it will do everything for you. That will save a lot of time, especially when you are setting up a project on a new server, or your peer developer is setting up a project for the first time in his system. That will be very helpful for them too. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any suggestions, please provide me in the comment section.